Namaskar, a warm welcome to World News, an Indian perspective on All India Radio. This is Nobunita Adhikari and with me is Ramya, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. Headlines. India-China standoff on line of actual control is still not normal. More needs to be done, says Ministry of External Affairs. India says human rights of people of Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region of China should be respected and guaranteed. Government advises Indian nationals not to get entrapped in fake job offers originating from Laos, Cambodia and Myanmar. New Delhi expresses shock over abduction and killing of members of Indian origin family in California and termed this incident unfortunate. US President Joe Biden says risk of nuclear conflict is at its highest level since Cuban Missile Crisis. Nobel Peace Prize awarded to human rights advocate Alice Bialiatski from Belarus, Russian Human Rights Organization Memorial and Ukrainian Human Rights Organization Center for Civil Liberties. In the Women's Asia Cup T20, Pakistan defeats India at Sylhet in Bangladesh. The External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi has said that the India-China standoff on the line of actual control is still not normal. Briefing media in New Delhi today, Mr. Bagchi said some positive steps have been taken, but more needs to be done.
पूरी नॉर्मलसी के लिए कुछ स्टेप्स जरूरी हैं, वहां तो हम बिल्कुल नहीं पहुंचे हैं, पर हम चाहेंगे कि वो पूरा सीक्वेंस रहता है कि डिसएंगेजमेंट हो जाए, डी एस्केलेशन हो, फिर बॉर्डर पे नॉर्मलसी हो ताकि हमारे ओवरऑल रिलेशनशिप में कोई रेगुलरिटी या नॉर्मलसी आ पाए. सिचुएशन अभी उस तरह से मैं उसको नहीं कहना चाहूंगा कि नॉर्मल है. इसमें कुछ पॉजिटिव स्टेप्स हुए हैं, पर अभी भी कुछ और स्टेप्स बाकी हैं.
On the human rights of the people of Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region of China, Mr. Bagchi said that they should be respected and guaranteed. He added, India remains committed to upholding all human rights and it favors a dialogue to deal with such issues. He expressed hope that relevant parties will address the situation objectively and properly. India has expressed shock over the abduction and killing of members of Indian origin family in California, USA, and termed this incident unfortunate. Briefing media in New Delhi today, spokesperson of the External Affairs Ministry, Arindam Bagchi, said the Indian Consulate General is in contact with the family and providing all the assistance.
पुलिस अधिकारी सक्रिय रूप से इस अपराध की जांच कर रहे हैं और सैन फ्रांसिस्को में हमारा जो दूतावास है वो घटनाक्रम का फॉलो अप तो कर ही रहे हैं, कांटेक्ट में है, फैमिली के साथ भी कांटेक्ट में है और इस संपर्क में हम हैं और जो भी सहायता हम कर सकते हैं हम करते रहेंगे. इस तरह से ये बहुत शॉकिंग इंसिडेंट है और जितना हम कर सकते हैं काउंसिलर साइड से हम करेंगे.
On the death of Indian prisoners in Pakistan's custody, Mr. Bagchi has raised concern. He said the increasing number of death of prisoners is alarming and it raises questions about the security and safety mechanism in Pakistan's jails. Mr. Bagchi has again advised the Indian nationals not to get entrapped in fake job offers originating from Laos, Cambodia and Myanmar. He said around 50 people have been rescued so far from Myanmar and efforts are being done to get back the others too. India has objected to the United States of America's ambassador to Pakistan, Donald Bloom's visit to Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. In a media briefing in New Delhi today, External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said India's objections to the visit and meetings in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir by the US ambassador have been conveyed to the US side.
Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla has said that the spirit of mutual cooperation is the foundation of success of G20. Addressing the closing ceremony of the 8th Summit of Speakers of G20 Parliaments, P20 in Jakarta, Indonesia, Mr. Birla said India believes that global prosperity, economic opportunities and challenges are interlinked subjects. He opined that parliaments of the G20 member countries should collectively contribute to the strengthening of parliamentary and community participation mechanisms in governance, taking into account shared visions and their concerns. Speaking on India's glorious journey of democracy in the last 75 years, the Lok Sabha Speaker said that smooth transfer of power according to people's mandate has been a speciality of our constitution and democracy. He further said that Indian Parliament protects the interests of the citizens of the country and guides in making laws and policies to fulfill the hopes and aspirations of the people. In furtherance of traditional Indo-Kenya ties and defence cooperation, Major General F.G. Ahmed, Commandant Kenya Military Academy, visited Indian Military Academy, Dehradun from 5th to 7th of October 2022, along with a high-level delegation comprising of 5 members from Kenya Military Academy. Major General F.G. Ahmed is the first woman to hold the rank of General in the Kenya Armed Forces and the Commandant Kenya Military Academy. The visiting delegation was shown in detail the training regime being followed at the Indian Military Academy, including aspects of representation from friendly foreign countries. The Kenya delegation appreciated the state-of-the-art training facilities at Indian Military Academy being utilized for training the gentlemen cadets to face the varied challenges of modern-day warfare.
In today's Hotpot section, we bring you a discussion on India's relations with Australia and New Zealand. In conversation are Dr. Rajiv Nayan, strategic analyst, and Simran Sodhi, journalist.
We are discussing India's relations with Australia and New Zealand. And we also see that the External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, is currently on an official visit to New Zealand and later in Australia. Dr. Nayan, when we see these two visits which are taking place, how would you say overall has been the progress in India's relationship with New Zealand and Australia? If we look at the last few years, how much have they gone forward and what do you feel has been the strength going forward in these times?
Both are very important Pacific countries and both have been quite important for India for long. In recent years, we have developed very, very close relationship with Australia, as you know, because all of us are members of Quad. India, United States, Japan and Australia. But we have also tried to develop equally intense relationship with New Zealand as well. Because New Zealand is quite important for us for several reasons. For economic, for trade, for educational, for health reasons, for so many reasons. We find that New Zealand should also play an important role. As you rightly pointed out, that our foreign minister has gone. This is his first visit. So now we are going to emphasize on our relationship with New Zealand as well. I'm sure in the future also, with the progress of visits of the foreign minister, we'll also have a very upcoming relationship with the two countries, two important Pacific countries, and which is quite important for strategic reasons, for other reasons also.
Dr. Nayan, when we talk of India-Australia relations, the one thing that we talk about is the Quad. As we see, the Quad is an organization with India, US, Australia and Japan as members. How do you think has the Quad contributed in getting India and Australia on a common platform when it comes to looking at a lot of global platforms that now we share a common perspective? The fact that we both belong to the Quad, and the Quad we also see is becoming much more active in the recent few years.
That's true. Like Quad really defined the bilateral relationships of the two countries. Already India and Australia has got, or you can say, evolved its relationship in many areas. And both of us are Commonwealth countries. We have got Westminster-style democracies. We are expanding our economic engagement and we are increasing high-level interactions. Now we are having foreign ministers visit. He was in New Zealand. He will be in Australia also. But already we are working together quite well. Both of us are a strong, vibrant, secular, multicultural democracies. With free press, independent judicial system, and we both speak English quite well and provides us, you can say, a bridge, you can say, an instrument to work together in many economic, commercial areas. And we also know that it serves as a foundation for close cooperation in many other areas, and we have very good people-to-people ties. Many Indian students are going there. Many of our relatives you may find studying in Australia and also working there. So in nutshell, we can say that really we have charted a new trajectory of transformational growth. Till very recent past, We didn't have very good relationship with Australia. Australia was generally considered very close to China, but things have changed dramatically and drastically. We are moving forward, and I'm sure our strategic partnership. This is reflected also in a joint declaration on security cooperation. Will again provide a new, vista for cooperation, for working together.
Dr. Nayan, as you also mentioned China, and we have seen that the rise of China, which has been aggressive, and we've also seen very aggressive actions by China, whether it is on the border of India or it is in the Indo-Pacific. We have seen a China which is not making anyone comfortable, whether it is India, whether it is Australia or the US, and that is where the Quad also comes in play to a great extent. Do you feel that this common worry that India has, Australia has, along with other global partners about China also contributes in building a better understanding between countries like India and Australia today?
Look, we have been raging the China factor or China issue in bringing about instability or destabilization in the Pacific region for a long time. But Australia was a bit reluctant initially. It has started seeing it itself. So now it has started realizing that yes, China is an issue, and now the way it is forging military relationship, it is going to have bases in some of the small island countries in that area, in that region, definitely must be worrying Australia a lot. So yes, Australia is gradually realizing now with the reports of their think tanks. So you will find that the realization has really skipped in quite deep, and they are highlighting the Chinese problem, the Chinese intervention. So Australia and India both are also helping each other in developing their capabilities, not only in the military area, but also in high technology zone and many other areas. So in that way, definitely China has become a big rallying point for the forging the relationship of the two countries, Australia and India. And we will see that if China doesn't change, doesn't mend its ways, we may have more and more areas of cooperation coming up between India and Australia.
Dr. Nayan, we also see that there is a very strong economic component to the relationship. And we also saw that earlier this year, there was the announcement of the signing of an interim free trade agreement between India and Australia, which cut tariffs on exports from Australia to India, including coal, lentils, meat, and wool. This agreement is also the first step towards a long-awaited comprehensive trade deal that has been in the works for a while now. How much do you think is this deal that has finally been signed by India and Australia going to strengthen, one, the economic relationship, and two, how does this economic relationship then strengthen the overall ties between the two countries?
You have rightly pointed out this agreement is really going to strengthen the relationship between India and Australia and in fact, India has been emphasizing strengthening the relationship with not only Australia, but also with New Zealand also in the economic field. So certainly this is the new trend, new path which we are exploring and which we are working out will help India's strengthening of relationship with the two countries. And with Australia having several strategic papers coming up, and through that strategic papers we have been trying to work out, like there was one economic strategic paper of 2035 to define a pathway. So I think we have built a roadmap, and through that roadmap we are trying to unlock opportunities. So I'm sure that in the coming years or coming months also, we'll find that bilateral and trade coming up. So India is 8th largest trade partner of Australia with goods and services. So I'm sure that I told you earlier, in the recent past, our relationship was not so good. But now we have started strengthening the relationship. So I think the rank will definitely improve, and we'll find that this India will become Australia's either 5th or 6th largest trading partner. And we have got many common areas to work on. And our diaspora is quite vibrant and quite lively there. And they are also working quite hard to bring India and Australia together. Recently, we had dialogue between India and Australian strategic community, and that dialogue is also trying to find out new areas to work on. So you will find that not only traditional areas, but also many new areas where the two countries can work together, and the CEO forums or many institutional inventions or mechanisms or innovations which have been made will also contribute to development of the relationship, economic development, the economic relationship of the two countries.
Dr. Nain, we also see that the role of the Indian diaspora in both New Zealand and Australia has become very important. We have a sizable population living in both the countries today that have moved from India and are now settled in New Zealand and Australia. We also saw that the External Affairs Minister did participate in an event in New Zealand where he met members of the Indian community. And how much do you think does the diaspora then contribute to the strengthening of ties? We have people of Indian origin in both New Zealand and Australia. And how much does this then add to the strength of the relationship?
I think you are quite right. Actually, the Indian diaspora was not very visible in either New Zealand or to an extent even Australia. But recently, we have started seeing them and quite frequently in Indian policy circles. And they are trying to bring the two countries together. In Australia, in New Zealand, there are, according to one report, official report, there are 250,000 people of Indian origin or NRI, non-resident Indians. And they are working very hard. These people of Indian origin is of recent origin. They are not staying there for a very long period. Now many of them have become citizens there, and they are now coming up and they are trying to bridge the gap. There are many gaps between the two countries. There was some perceptual gap. Despite being the fact that both are democracies, both love peace, they both work for nuclear disarmament or general disarmament, yet there was some kind of misunderstanding or misapprehension about each other. That is going down, and those things really are being ironed out. All these wrinkles are being ironed out. About Australia diaspora was relatively more visible in the last 2 or 3 decades. But nowadays, you can say in last 5 or 6 years or 10 years, you will find them becoming very active, if not as active as American Indian diaspora, you can say, or Indian diaspora staying in UK, could be, or in Gulf countries. But they are also coming up quite well, and they are also contributing. The best thing about Australian diaspora or New Zealand's diaspora, Indian diaspora, is that they are trying to institutionalize. Now we will find that Australia India Institute contributing. They are giving a scholarship to Indian students to study there. Similarly, they are giving projects to Australian and even the diaspora living there in New Zealand. And this is how they are trying to bring multidimensionality in the relationship. So from working from cyber security to cultural areas, they are also emphasizing on cultural areas. And in fact, they are carrying the Indian tradition to these two countries is a big instrument, is a big tool to remove many of the apprehensions. So I think diasporas of both the countries are doing extremely well, and they will play a very important role in the coming years, or you can say the coming decades, and you'll find the relationship strengthening between the two countries.
Dr. Nain, when we talk of the diaspora and we talk of the people-to-people ties and the cultural links and the soft power diplomacy, and this is something you mentioned briefly before, would you say that the fact that both India and Australia and New Zealand, the three of them, are cricket-loving nations, so cricket has also played its role in bringing the nations together?
Yeah, that is true. It is a soft power, generally we call it, sport diplomacy. And sometimes what happens that because of cricket, we have got bitterness also, but we overcome it very fast. And thanks to this IPL series, we are engaging sports persons, players from these two countries, and they are becoming part of, say, the broad Indian project. They are also participating in many of the Indian teams, and they are carrying a different message that changed India's image abroad in Australia and in New Zealand. So I think cricket is really playing a very important role.
And in the coming days, we will continue our discussions, and we will also follow the visit of External Affairs Minister. With these comments, we bring today's discussion to an end. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
U.S. President Joe Biden has said that the risk of a nuclear conflict is at its highest level since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. He added that the U.S. was trying to figure out Mr. Putin's way out of the war. The U.S. and the EU have previously said Mr. Putin's nuclear saber-rattling should be taken seriously. However, the U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan earlier said that despite Moscow's nuclear hints, the U.S. had seen no signs that Russia was imminently preparing to use a nuclear weapon. In the meanwhile, Ukraine has been retaking some portions of the territory occupied by Russia. During a speech last Friday, President Putin threatened to use every means at his disposal to protect Russian territory.
The centre has constituted a task force for monitoring cheetah introduction in the Kuno National Park in Madhya Pradesh and other suitable designated areas. The National Tiger Conservation Authority, NTCA, would facilitate the working of the cheetah task force and render all necessary help. The 9-member task force will include Principal Secretaries, Forest and Tourism Ministry of Madhya Pradesh and the Inspector General of NTCA, New Delhi, Dr. Amit Malik. The Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change in a statement said the task force will be in force for a period of 2 years. This task force may appoint a subcommittee to regularly visit the cheetah introduction areas as and when decided by them. The task force has been constituted to review progress and monitor the health status of the cheetah, upkeep of the quarantine and soft release enclosure, protection status of the entire area and adherence to the defined protocols. It will also monitor the hunting skills and adaptation of cheetahs to the habitat of the Kuno National Park. It will also suggest the development of tourism infrastructure in the fringe areas of the Kuno National Park and other protected areas. Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal has said that artificial intelligence, AI, will be a catalyst in India's growth journey. Addressing the 3rd edition of Global AI Summit and Awards in New Delhi today, Mr. Goyal said AI will supplement the thinking, aid the working, help in doing the job better and implement plans better. He said AI will help people in this journey to take prosperity to every citizen across the country. The ministry said artificial intelligence can truly change the way people live, work and interact. He said newer ways of working will change the way we manufacture goods and provide services. The minister said AI is being used to get feedback on the fair price shops delivering food grains to beneficiaries and it is helping understand beneficiary behavior of PMGKAY.
The U.S. military has said that it carried out an airstrike in northern Syria yesterday that killed 2 Islamic State members, including a leader it named as Abu Hashim al-Umami. The strike came just hours after a rare U.S. helicopter raid on a government-held village in Syria's northeast, which killed another Islamic State official. The U.S. military's Central Command said initial assessments indicated no civilian casualties. There were no U.S. military casualties also. The South Korea and the United States began joint maritime exercises with a U.S. aircraft carrier on Friday. South Korea's defense ministry said that the maritime drills will take place in waters off South Korea's east coast on 7th-8th of October. It said both the countries will continue to strengthen their operational capabilities and readiness to respond to any provocations by North Korea through joint drills. The drills come after North Korea launched a pair of ballistic missiles into the sea on Thursday and later flew warplanes near the border with the South. The U.S. strike group already participated in trilateral missile defense exercises with warships from Japan and South Korea this week, prompted by a test on Tuesday in which North Korea launched a ballistic missile that overflew part of Japan.
The United States imposed sanctions on Iranian officials on Thursday over crackdowns on protesters. Iranian Interior Minister Ahmad Vahidi and Communications Minister Esa Zaripur are among those sanctioned by the U.S. U.S. Treasury Undersecretary Brian Nelson in a statement has said that America condemns the Iranian government's internet shutdown and continued violent suppression of peaceful protests. Last month, the U.S. imposed sanctions on Iran's morality police over allegations of abuse of women. The country has seen weeks of widespread unrest over the death of Kurdish woman Mahsa Amini in police custody. This year's Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to human rights advocate Ales Politsiaski from Belarus, the Russian Human Rights Organization Memorial and Ukrainian Human Rights Organization Center for Civil Liberties, chairperson of the Norwegian Nobel Committee in Oslo, Berit Reiss-Andersen announced the name of the winners. A report.
Born on September 25, 1962, in Vyartsilya, Russia's Karelia, Bialyatsky was a resident of Belarus at the time of the award. Bialyatsky was one of the initiators of the democratic movement that emerged in Belarus in the mid-1980s. He has devoted his life to promoting democracy and peaceful development in his home country. He founded the organization Vyasna, or the Spring, in 1996. Vyasna evolved into a broad-based human rights organization that documented and protested against the authorities' use of torture against political prisoners. Government authorities have repeatedly sought to silence Ales Bialyatsky. Since 2020, he is still detained without trial. Despite tremendous personal hardship, Mr. Bialyatsky has not yielded an inch in his fight for human rights and democracy in Belarus. Anuja Kumar for AIR News.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts.
Welcome back to World News. A SpaceX capsule carrying a Russian cosmonaut and the first Native American women in space docked with the International Space Station ISS on Thursday. According to media reports, the Crew Dragon spacecraft named Endurance met with the orbiting research station 30 hours after launch from Cape Canaveral in Florida. Ms. Anna Kikena, the first Russian aboard an American spacecraft in 20 years, was accompanied by Native American Commander Nicole Mann, George Casada of the United States, and Koichi Wakata of Japan. World Smile Day is observed on first Friday of October every year. World Smile Day was first observed in 1999 by Harvey Ball, an artist. The objective behind observing Smile Day was to dedicate a day in a year to smiles and kind acts. The theme of World Smile Day remains the same every year. Do an act of kindness, help one person smile.
At the 36th National Games, Pooja Patel of Gujarat has become the first athlete to win gold in Yogasan. Yogasan is one of the 5 sports to be played at the National Games this year for the first time. This Indian indigenous sport made its debut at the Khelo India University Games earlier this year. In the Women's T20 Asia Cup, India lost to Pakistan by 13 runs at Sylhet in Bangladesh. Earlier, Pakistan won the toss and opted to bat. Pakistan set the target of 138 runs as they scored 137 for 6 wickets in the stipulated 20 overs.
Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. New York Times notes blunt criticism of Russian army signals new challenge for Putin. The Washington Post reports that Argentina's new crisis, a shortage of World Cup stickers.
The Guardian writes that health workers among dead in Ugandan Ebola outbreak. South China Morning Post reports a new COVID-19 wave is looming in Europe. The Financial Times writes that Poland claims German energy plan will destroy EU's single market. The Japan Times says China, Taiwan and where the KMT fits in.
A quick look at the headlines once again. India-China standoff on line of actual control is still not normal. More needs to be done, says Ministry of External Affairs. India says human rights of people of Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region of China should be respected and guaranteed. Government advises Indian nationals not to get entrapped in fake job offers originating from Laos, Cambodia and Myanmar. New Delhi expresses shock over abduction and killing of members of Indian origin family in California and termed this incident unfortunate. US President Joe Biden says risk of nuclear conflict is at its highest level since Cuban Missile Crisis. Nobel Peace Prize awarded to human rights advocate Ales Bialyatsky from Belarus, Russian Human Rights Organization Memorial and Ukrainian Human Rights Organization Center for Civil Liberties. In the Women's Asia Cup T20, Pakistan defeats India at Sylhet in Bangladesh. And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Cambodia. And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.